With oral health being linked to so many other chronic diseases, we're giving them the tools to maintain great oral health for life. We can now see the change in the children, so when they come in, they are happy, they have confidence in us, and not only in us, but they have confidence in themselves. In the last 3 years, we've almost halved the decay rate in the children. So in the next 3 years, you could just imagine what could happen if in 3 years, when we've still been establishing rapport, once you've got this rapport, you don't want to lose it. It's a trust thing for the towns. The Tooth team is very grateful for the funding that we have received. When the program first started 3 years ago, we would never have thought that as a team we could have achieved these amazing changes and have so many great success stories. And you're seeing them have smiles which they may never have had before. We haven't just touched a small group, we've touched so many families, adults, children alike on 4 different communities. We know that we've changed their lives and in turn they've changed ours.
Now the RFDS, as many of you know, is a long-running institution. It's one that we're very proud of. One has a deep and rich history here in Australia. It's been in operation for over 85 years. The philanthropic purpose of the RFDS was originally to provide a mantle of safety for those who lived and worked beyond the reach of normal medical care. The mantle of safety that we provide these days extends to providing primary healthcare services. And I think that's where the Outback Oral Treatment and Health Service, which is a mouthful, excuse the pun, and so we refer to it as Tooth, came to bear. And it's been part of the RFDS service now in the Upper Western Health District since February 2012. There was previously very limited and in some cases no access to dental care. And so far in its entirety, the Tooth program has now provided 695 clinics, treated nearly 5,000 patients across remote communities, Burke, as you saw before, Coloranabri, Gaduga and Lightning Ridge. Tooth was made possible and only made possible because of the generous support of the Gonski Foundation and the Investec Foundation. Together they supported this program with an injection of over $1.3 million over 3 years. And that is an initiative that I think deserves a true round of applause. And of course, leading this charge was Mr. David Gonski, Companion of the Order of Australia. David is a leading philanthropist and a business person that is well recognised and well known to many, and certainly well regarded by all. He's created a new dialogue in many areas of Australian life, and his thought leadership continues to be sought out in a range of issues and challenges. So would you please join with me in welcoming David to the podium.
Most people talk about philanthropy as if giving is the same for all people. And I want to start from the proposition that philanthropy is an enormously personal thing, and indeed should continue to be. I'm very amused when I read that there's a criticism of somebody, usually quite a wealthy person, for giving money because they say he, usually a he, wants to improve his name, or indeed wishes to buy favour or whatever. My view, as someone who's involved in philanthropic things, and more particularly in raising money for what I regard are good causes, I never criticise. It is up to you, as they say in your maker or whatever, what you feel is right and wrong in relation to philanthropy. The second thing that's often said about philanthropy is that there is enormous joy of giving. I've got to say, 20 years ago, I didn't have a clue what that meant. But if you want to know whether I feel a joy in giving, look at that smile. I'm taking that smile with me all day because I feel a joy of being, in somewhat small as it may be, responsible for that lovely smile. If you're intelligent and hard-working, you tend to get narrower and narrower. And the wonderful thing about giving, being involved with not-for-profits like the one we're here to honour, is that your life can be broadened. I've been invited into the world of the arts because of philanthropy. I am the most hopeless artist that ever lived, but I have an eye that actually enjoys art. I have no educational background other than my own training as a lawyer, and yet I've been able to deal at a high level with education because of philanthropy. I've been invited into health. I am the black sheep of my family. Everybody else are doctors. I chose to be a lawyer, which at one stage was quite a catastrophe, but nevertheless was allowed. I should also add that many, particularly in the world in which I live, have troubles limiting their egos. And I have to tell you, some have failed in that capacity. My ego has definitely been limited by working in the not-for-profit space. I've seen people deal with wonderful things with very limited resources. I've seen people go out into places that have very little and make something. And I have stood there and thought, what have I achieved compared to what they have? Philanthropic thinking can break down the barriers. I've watched staff in various companies in which I work gladly work with the chairman, etc., in terms of philanthropic service, breaking down the barriers between those who are just starting out in their lives in business and those who might be coming at the other end. These are the benefits of philanthropy, and I haven't even got to the one that us older timers enjoy. I'm very conscious that as one gets older, legacy becomes quite an important issue. And those of you who've studied economic text will remember great names like Getty and Carnegie. And if you study their lives, you may realize they're not really lives that perhaps you'd want to be proud of. And yet, what have they given us through philanthropy? They've given us wonderful performing halls. They've given us great art galleries. And as we look back, our feeling in terms of their legacy has improved. To be quite crass, philanthropic thinking can improve your donation to the world. Many wealthy people have spent hours, days, and absolute meticulous genius thinking to make their money, and often give it away without any thought whatsoever, without KPIs, key performance indicators, without expectations of great changes. I think that what we have to do, and what is starting to happen, is that giving is as important as the getting of the money. This means that often the not-for-profit has to work harder, but it also means the person giving has to be much more precise as to what they want to achieve, much more caring, much more involved, and I think much more diligent. And I should say to you that I'm one of the donors who once did give some money for a wonderful cause involving less advantaged people overseas being given educational benefits, only to find 4 years later that it hadn't happened. And it wasn't so bad that it hadn't happened. What was terrible was it took me 4 years to realise it. That won't happen to my giving again. So all of this is the background to a wonderful trip that was taken some 4 years ago now by me, my wife, my daughter, and some wonderful people that I'd like to mention in a minute. I don't know what happens in your household, but I'm quite dominated by women. My wife and my daughter are both medicos, and they were very keen that all of this that I've just espoused to you should be translated into doing something medically for Australia. And because my wife is a paediatric dermatologist, her first choice was that we should go out and do something in relation to skin conditions in the Indigenous people of New South Wales. I decided that we should make some sort of arrangement with the Royal Flying Doctor Service. The then CEO and the chairman at the time said, come out and look. Don't just decide as a city slicker what you want to give. Go out and have a look. And so one day we hopped on a plane, Christine, my wife, my daughter, myself, together with a wonderful pilot who seemed to know where he was going. As we went from Dubbo to Gaduga and to Burke, we realised we may be on the wrong track. The GPs were quite categoric. Teeth and gum disease was the problem. Skin, a problem, but not as major. And the other point they made is it's not just for the Indigenous, it's for the whole community. We went and visited 2 wonderful dental chairs, but actually there was one big problem. There was no dentist. Indeed, we saw a lot of dental chairs on that trip, all fitted by various government grants, but in fact, no dentists. We ditched the idea of the skin remediation and decided that gum disease and teeth were what we had to look at. And so the partnership commenced. I realised that we were dealing with a group that really knew what they were doing. And I'd have to say about the Royal Flying Doctors, they're not just people from the city. They understand their communities. We sat down, we worked out some KPIs. We worked out what we wanted to achieve, and they presented us the bill, and then they had to call a GP over to revive me. Having said that, and Lynn will bear this out, we actually said we thought the bill should be bigger. We were keen to have some sort of education in terms of dental hygiene, and we wanted to extend it slightly. Armed with an enormous bill, you do what a good banker does. You're prepared to spend some monies, but you go and look for a good partner. And I'm pleased to say that when I went and spoke to Investec Bank, who were just setting up their foundation, and it's very nice to see some of them here today, they enveloped the idea, as I might say, to the staff of Investec Bank. What happened here, which I think is a fantastic forerunner, is that we backed a great not-for-profit, the Royal Flying Doctor Service. And then we joined a great company, Investec Bank, and a family that wanted to do something. And the 3 of us put together what we had, namely money on the one side, technology, understanding, and I think love of people on the other. I cannot tell you what a good experience it's been. Standing at Lightning Ridge Airport, we were there early and an aeroplane landed with our insignia on the side, and out got our dentist, the dental nurse, and all the paraphernalia that they bring. I felt so proud. I felt that a man from the city has done something for people. I felt this was tangible, and during the day we spent in Lightning Ridge seeing what these dentists did not in any way deter me from that thought on that day. So I come to the end, if you like, to bring it all together. Philanthropy is a very personal thing. The Royal Flying Doctor, a wonderful, wonderful service, touched all our buttons through their cleverness, through their wish to serve, and I think the resources that they can bring on a fly-in, fly-out basis. The end result is we created a service. And I know some of you who are a bit cynical will now ask 2 questions. 1, why didn't the government provide this in the first place? And second, what's going to happen now if the money basically stops? I've always seen governments as big aircraft carriers, having to look after the whole nation, and with no real time nor justification to actually look after the little coves that may be part of a nation. But the philanthropist and the not-for-profit can be the frigate, dart into the port and have a look and help. But once we've established something, taken the risk out of it, that's the time for the aircraft carrier to come in. And I would put to you today that we're at that stage, that those at the Royal Flying Doctor Service have proven with just under 5,000 patients and just under 700 clinics that we can do it. Our money has been well spent in basically getting it going, and it's now time for wider involvement. The Tooth Project, for me, will always be something I'll smile at. And I must say, a great endorsement to the Royal Flying Doctor Service, and I might say to Lynn Mayne and her team, who have carried out to the letter what we as the donors wanted them to do.